Alright, what is going on everybody? Pretender here, back with another Honkai Star Out guide, and today I'm going to be going over Sparkle's best teams. As you guys know, Sparkle is almost here, going to be a part of the second half of 2.0 along with the Jingwan rerun. And so yeah, today I'm going to be going over units that she's really good with and potential team ideas with her, especially where she will shine best. And yeah, subscribe if you like dogs. That is the headliner. Anyway, so I will be briefly going over her kit down here. I do have a full build guide on my channel that you can check out right up here on the related videos. I will also have it on the pinned comment of this video. Make sure to check it out because I go over her kit fully, her eidolons, best lycons, best relics, and relic stats. So the major thing with Sparkle is she fixes the issues of skill points. Moving on to her skill here first. She does increase the crit damage of a single ally by 24% of Sparkle's crit damage plus 45% for one turn. So she does give a buff to crit damage to who you select based on her own crit damage, and also gives them an advanced forward action by 50%. And her ultimate recovers 4 skill points and also increases damage. Combining that with the talent, you get an even bigger damage buff from the ultimate, and you also overcap your skill points by 2. So instead of having a maximum of 5 skill points on a team, you would have a maximum of 7 skill points, which is really good. And you combine that with their ultimate, you're also now able to recover 4 skill points with their ultimate, and boom! You now have a character that fixes skill point issues and gives a really good damage buff. Moving down here, talking about only the first bonus ability here, as it does say increases all allies' attack by 15%. So an unconditional attack increase to all allies by 15% is a nice bonus ability. And now a lot of people think the second part locks her to only Quantum. She will be strongest on a Quantum team because of this thing right here. With 1, 2, 3 Quantum type allies on the team, increases their attack, the Quantum allies attack, by 5, 15, 30. So if you have 1 Quantum ally other than Sparkle, you get a 5% damage bonus. If you have 2, you get 15%, and if you have 3, you get a 30% attack increase. Again, only for Quantum units. And so for the first team, she will definitely be running best on the Mono Quantum team, consisting of either your main DPS being Zele or QQ, I will get into why in a bit, Fushuan, and Silverwolf. That will be her best of the best team, because this is the team that she'll buff the most. This team currently, regardless if you're running either QQ or Zele, has skill point issues, and Sparkle fixes that and also is a really good buffer. Combine that with a debuffer / sub DPS as Silverwolf, along with a broken sustained unit as Fushuan, 2 really good DPSs being Zele and QQ. And now with Sparkle in the frame fixing their skill point issues along with being an insanely good buffer, this definitely becomes one of the strongest teams. And is definitely one of Sparkle's best, if not the best, team for her. So the reason this team is pretty skill point hungry is due to the fact, let's start off with Zele. So her skill pretty much increases her speed by 25% for 2 turns, and she pretty much is a single target DPS that dishes out a bunch of damage. But with her talent Resurgence, she enters the buff state upon defeating an enemy with a basic attack skill or ultimate, and receives an extra turn. So very often you will be absolutely spamming this skill no matter what, and let's face it, most DPSs are technically skill point hungry due to the fact that for the most part you use skill. Few exceptions, but with Zele and because of her extra turn from Resurgence, this becomes even more of an issue. To get the most out of her, you're obviously going to be wanting to spam skill like most DPSs. And when you kill an enemy, instead of just having that one thing where you just kill them once, you use 1 skill point, boom, that's done, you get an extra turn, so you'd probably use it again. So 2 skill points. And you can put 2 and 2 together, it becomes very hard to manage at some points. Not to mention, if you're trying to wiggle an enemy down, it can also become an issue. The times you have to pop Fushuan's Matrix with her skill, because you always practically want to have this up. And the times you might have to inflict weakness with Silverwolf, obviously these are much less of an issue, because you only have to pop them 1 every few turns. Not only that, but again, using the skill a bunch, especially in harder content, might not kill. So being required to use the skill more, again, along in harder content, the enemies will hit harder. And currently, on Mono Quantum is Lynx as the healer. And as I mentioned in harder content, you'll be taking a lot more damage, so you BB needing to use Lynx's skill even more, so team becomes even more skill point hungry. But the main issue is getting an extra turn and needing to blow through your skill points like no tomorrow. Now the same skill point issue applies to QQ. So the reason QQ is very skill point hungry is due to the fact that when you are trying to enhance her basic attack from Flower Pick to Cherry on top, which is how she dishes out a ton of damage, pretty much as a summary you have to practically roll for it. Practically spamming the skill rolls each time uses skill points. And so you can get very lucky and get it first try. You can get unlucky and you could just use all the skill points you currently have and just not get it. That is also possible. So it becomes really hard to manage, especially due to the fact that it's RNG. And so QQ's main issue, and practically only issue, is the fact that she burns skill points like no tomorrow. And now with Sparkle, she helps combat that issue. She doesn't fix it entirely because you can still get really unlucky with it, but the fact she recovers so many skill points and overcaps your skill points, thanks to the talent and ult, your QQ has a way better chance and much better odds at getting the talent proc and having your basic attack become the blast cherry on top, and you'll be able to dish out a lot more damage a lot more frequently. And you'll also be less likely to run into the issues where you have absolutely no skill points. Because there's a ton of times where you'll burn through so many skill points of QQ that sometimes you'll just get so unlucky to where you can't even have the uptime on Silverwolf's skill, where you inflict a weakness on an enemy, and sometimes you won't even be able to pop up the Matrix from Fushwan just because QQ just burned through all your skill points and you just kept getting unlucky. So that is a major drawback that she has, and Sparkle greatly helps with that issue. Her ult giving you 4 more rolls, aka 4 more skill points, and her ult letting you overcap the skill points, potentially then you have even more chances than a maximum of 5. Not only is the skill point issue being fixed for both Zelia and QQ, but the fact that Sparkle also buffs the hell out of your crit damage, gives you a 50% action forward, and gives you a damage boost when you combine the talent and ultimate, and gives you an attack percent boost from her bonus ability, and the second part of this first bonus ability with the quantum stuff. Both Zelia and QQ become so much stronger because now they're having a bunch more crit damage applied to them, bunch more damage dealt, and attack percent, and just all that stuff. You combine all those things and it just adds up. So now your DPSs are not only being supplied with skill points to dish out more damage in general, they are also now getting a really big boost to their damage stats. And so that's why Sparkle's best team will be on the Mono Quantum team. Again, your DPS being either Zelia or QQ. Sustain is Fushwan. Support/debuffer is Silverwolf. And the last unit with your buffer will be Sparkle. So outside of Mono Quantum, Sparkle is really good for especially one more notable DPS. And that is Imbibitor Lunae Heng. Imbibitor Lunae Heng is extremely powerful to this day, but despite being really good, he has one significant issue, and that, you guessed it, is skill points. That is due to the fact that his kit works by using a skill to enhance his basic attack, similar to QQ, but not RNG based. The way it works is when you pop the skill once, pretty much you pop the skill and you can enhance it once and make your basic attack become Transcendence, pretty much consuming 1 skill point to make your basic attack stronger. You can consume 2 skill points, enhancing it twice and making your basic attack become Divine Spear, also making it become AoE with that. And his main selling point, once you enhance it 3 times, you can use up to 3 skill points, and yeah, using 3 skill points to enhance his basic attack makes his basic attack become Fulgurant Leap. And Fulgurant Leap is the main source of his damage. That's where he hits like 200, 300, 400, 500k plus easily. That is the main thing, and you practically want to be doing this as much as possible. But due to the fact that this skill, being able to burn up to 3 skill points just to get this max, is where his only issue comes in. He is extremely skill point hungry, and it is really hard to manage a team around him due to this skill. Obviously, you can run units that are skill point efficient with him, making you be able to max out your basic attack a lot easier. But even then, this can still be a big issue because you still have to pop it, so starting off can be rough when you have to activate the skills on your supports and buffers. So it overall is still really rough. Lunae can kind of help with this skill point issue because he gains 2 of these that I will not try pronouncing, but I'll call them charges. Pretty much he can hold up to a maximum of 3 of those, and at assuming E0, when you ult you gain 2 of those. And if you have 2 of the charges, again, you can hold a maximum of 3. Those charges count as a skill point. So if you have 2 of those charges, say you ult, you gain 2 of them, you can enhance your basic attack twice, so making a Divine Sphere for free. You don't use skill points because you're using those 2 charges instead. And then if you enhance it all the way to Full Granite Leap, aka the strongest one, that will only consume 1 skill point instead of 3 because you're using 2 charges. So, Sparkle fixes the skill point issue because, again, she provides a bunch of skill points and overcaps your skill points. And so with her giving that, also giving Donning a 50% action advance when you apply the skill on him, not only are you buffing the hell out of his crit damage, not only are you giving him a bunch of damage with the ultimate and talent, you are also still applying the 15% attack from the bonus ability. And so yes, Sparkle is not locked to just Quantum Teams because of this. A lot of people are thinking that Sparkle is locked to Quantum Teams due to this. This is a very nice bonus. 30% Quantum type allies attack if you have a full team of Quantum. But she does so many other things to where you can practically just negate this. Again, it is really nice that Quantum allies get this, but she is just insane on her own. Her actual kit without that part of the bonus ability is already so good. And as I was mentioning, buffing your Donning to hell and letting him use his full power basic attack even more already would equate to doing more damage because you get to use one of the strongest attacks in the game a bunch more. And with Sparkle giving you much crit damage, damage dealt, all that kind of stuff, your Donning does even more damage, making him so much more dangerous. So Sparkle is a extremely good option with Donning. And a team you can use to practically get a bunch of potential off Donning is running him with Sparkle. And practically, the next 2 units are really flexible because Fushuan is just a sustain unit. If you want to run another healer, rocking Luocha or Ho-Ho is really good. They'll practically keep your Donning and your team alive. Combine one of those 2 with Fushuan and you practically don't have to worry about dying. Sparkle is your main buffer on that team and Donning is your main DPS. 2 of the other best options with a Donning Sparkle team would be Ruan-Mei and Ting-Yun due to the fact that they are also extremely broken buffers for him. So rocking something like Donning, Sustain Unit, Ruan-Mei and Sparkle, or again Ruan-Mei / Ting-Yun is a very, 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 very potent team. And so yeah, so just going to say this now that the best 2 teams will be Sparkle on Mono Quantum. Mono Quantum definitely being at the top due to the fact that she gives a bunch more buffs to Mono Quantum and functions way better on it due to the fact of giving more attack. But as I mentioned, you can negate this, and she is also super, super good with Donning, fixing his skill point issue, making him even stronger than he already is. A lot stronger at that. And so the best team you can run Sparkle on will be on a Mono Quantum team or a Donning team. And so once again, the Mono Quantum team would be Zele / QQ as your main DPS, Fushuan, or Lynx as your sustain unit. If you have Fushuan, every other day of the week you will be using Fushuan over Lynx on that team. But if you don't have Fushuan, your replacement would be Lynx, Silverwolf as your debuffer / sub DPS, and also a crucial unit because she applies Quantum Weakness against enemies that don't have the Quantum Weakness. And then obviously Sparkle as the buffer herself. And for Donning teams, Donning would be obviously the main DPS, Sparkle would be the buffer. The sustain unit could be Luocha, Huo, Fushuan, or Lynx. And then the other buffer would be either Ruan-Mei or Ting-Yun. And so pretty much take these units and you will practically make your team. Just make sure you have Donning, obviously first off. You obviously have Sparkle, so that's 2. And then make sure you select a sustain unit because you obviously don't want to die. And the last unit is flexible, taking Ruan-Mei or Ting-Yun. You could also take another DPS if you really want. But if you're rocking main DPS Donning, you most likely won't need it, so it's best to take a buffer to increase Donning's potential even more. And so moving on to more general teams you could use Sparkle on, she isn't just locked behind characters that are skill point hungry, since most of the DPSs in this game are skill point hungry, but you can use her on practically every team. Because these skill points are really good, it makes it to where your DPS can just spam the skill, which most DPSs will want to do. As I mentioned multiple times though, her damage buffs with crit damage and just damage dealt with the attack percent, all of them add up and you just get a bunch of buffs, not to mention the 50% action forward. But some general team ideas you could do is rocking her with someone like Jing Wan. because Jingwan can benefit from her tons because buffing his crit damage will be really good. Giving him more skill points to do allows him to spam his skill, giving him better uptime on getting Lightning Lord's hits per action to 10. The action forward also helps with that because, again, you get skill points and you get an action forward, making you be able to use your skill more. With more skill, you can get more uptime on your ult. Using your ult gives you 3, and with these all in mind, you get a easier time getting your Lightning Lord hits per action to 10. And so the teams you can run Sparkle on with a character like Jingwan could be something like rocking Jingwan or your other DPS as the main DPS, Sparkle herself, so that's 2 slots, your sustain unit being practically anyone here. So Fushuan would be the best option because she just does so much for your team and she fills the sustain part just because she tanks, gives buffs, can heal with her ult, but you could also just rock one of these two as your healer instead. And Ruanmei is also a very good option. With a team like this that is skill point efficient outside of the main DPS, it practically allows you to guilt-free use your skill points and not need to think about it that much. Because starting off, popping Woho's skill, she's pretty skill point efficient, you don't have to pop it too much. Unless you're about to die, then it becomes a different story. Ruanmei, very skill point efficient, you just need to pop it once every 3 or so times she moves. Luocha, you don't really have to use the skill that much, and Fushuan, you just need to use it every time the Matrix isn't active, just to make sure it's always active. And so, you can build a team around that with Jingwan, making it to practically where you can spam his skill, and he's also being buffed a bunch due to the fact of all the stuff she does. And yeah, as I mentioned, skill points are no longer an issue. Another really good option is Dr. Ratio, because he's another character that you want to be spamming the skill on. Since the way he works, you want to be using the skill a lot to proc his follow-up attack, and his follow-up attack can crit, obviously. So Sparkle buffing crit damage, attack damage dealt, all that kind of stuff benefits Dr. Ratio a ton. Especially if you're running Dr. Ratio on a follow-up team with Topaz, you're going to be needing to use his skills a bunch, and so skill point management can become a bit difficult. And so with Sparkle, it's no longer difficult pretty much. And so rocking a team with like Topaz, Dr. Ratio, and then you'd have Sparkle, so that's 3 characters already there. So your last unit would be Sustain, which again would be Fushuan, Luocha, Huohuo, and obviously, as I should mention, if you don't have a Sustain unit of these 3 characters, your next option would be Lynx, because Lynx is a free 4-star now, who is a really, really good healer, has all the stuff, can cleanse debuffs, all that kind of stuff. So Lynx is a very good option if you do not have any of these 3. So pretty much again, a general team format would be rocking your main DPS, Sparkle herself. So again, Sparkle would fit the role of a buffer, and you already have your main DPS. Then you would want to rock 1 sustain unit, being these 4, obviously preferably these 3 right here, and if you can't, Lynx is also a really good option. And the last unit is flexible. You can rock someone like Silverwolf, another sustain unit, so if you really want to be safe, you can rock 2. Or as I just mentioned, if you're rocking the case where you're rocking Dr. Ratio and Topaz for a follow-up team, you practically would already have that role filled because you'd be doing Topaz, Dr. Ratio, Sparkle, and your sustain unit. And so yeah, that's practically how you want to be rocking Sparkle on a general team. Some places where you may not want to run Sparkle would be with a character like Blade and Jinglu. And that is due to the fact that both these characters are pretty skill point positive. Since Blade just practically needs to pop his skill once and that enhances his basic attack and you don't have to worry about using a skill point for a while. And with Jinglu, you just need to use 2 skill points to use her skill twice, giving you 2 stacks of that. I'll just call them stacks. With the 2 stacks, you trigger the talent. Triggering the talent allows you to transform, changing your skill to this blast attack. And the blast attack, as it says here, using this ability does not consume skill points. So while you are in the transform state, you don't use skill points. He doesn't benefit too much from the overcap skill points. And rocking him as your main DPS, and if you don't have another like sub DPS that is 2 skill point hungry, you're practically going to be sitting on more skill points than you need. And obviously, having a bunch of skill points is nice just because you don't have to worry about it in case things get ugly. But you'd be better off using someone that can actually take the skill points and either do damage or buff your main DPS. And so, rocking someone like Bronya with someone like Blade would be better than rocking Sparkle. Don't get me wrong, you can still rock Sparkle with Blade or Jinglu due to the fact that Sparkle still gives a bunch of buffs. And again, as I mentioned, having overcap skill points is nice. Not having to worry about your skill points is nice, especially if things get ugly. And yeah, as I just mentioned, Sparkle just buffs them a bunch as well already, so Sparkle is still a really good option. But the main point of this is there's better options when you have a main DPS that is already skill point efficient. So someone like Jinglu and Blade still do benefit from Sparkle, but they can definitely do better with someone like Bronya, because Bronya will be using her skill a lot and she doesn't give skill points unless you have her signature light cone and such. But since the team is already skill point efficient, because the way you'd practically run a team with Blade and Jinglu would be like, so a team for Jinglu and Blade and such with Sparkle, if you would go about this, would be Blade / Jinglu with Sparkle, so that's 2. Fushuan can be a really good idea with them, but I definitely prefer taking a sustain of a healer over them due to the fact both these characters do drain HP. More so Blade for himself, but Jinglu does drain the HP of other allies. So I'd more rather say run a main healer. Fushuan does heal, but she isn't a main healer. So rocking someone like Luocha and Hoko is a better idea, / Lynx if you don't have them. And that would practically be your team if you were going to rock someone like Jinglu and Blade on that sort of team. But you would definitely benefit more from rocking someone like Ruan and Mei instead of Sparkle, or rocking Bronya instead of Sparkle overall on this team. But if you were to rock Sparkle on someone that is skill point efficient, such as these two, that is more of the route you would be taking. And so yeah, that is the best teams that you could be doing for Sparkle. Let me know if you guys are going to be summing for Sparkle, what kind of teams you're going to be wanting to run. Hope you guys found this video helpful, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.